hadn't finished the arc, and it was pouring rain when Kirk and Kirsten came, and well, Kirk survived the rain, but it really started pouring. Anyway, so my father offered up his undercroft, which is not a word I ever want to say in public again. But I think it was, I think it's, you know, why is it disturbing to be in my dad's undercroft? That was a rhetorical question, really. Yeah. I do think some of, I'm going to turn this around into some statement about something, but you know, I do think there was, I mean, some of the genesis of this film undoubtedly had to do with this pileup of objects in my father's barn, and which is, you know, just my dad's barn, but I think everybody has or knows somebody who has some version of that, whether it's on your smartphone or in fact in an attic or something like this. And it seemed to me that just inevitable that sooner or later, me, you know, my siblings and I would have to kind of grapple with the meaning of it. You know, what underpins it, and is it just personal to him, or does it tell us something about ourselves and the rest of it? But the question of, like, you know, how I decided I had to build an entirely new barn, essentially, of my own, in order to make this film, to sort of disentangle myself from some of the, you know, the weight of his undercroft.
That's a bold move. I mean, because that undercroft is a serious anchor. But it's full of meaning. I have not seen your father's undercroft. It would be driven by his father's undercroft, I promise you. But this is it's full of meaning and burden for anybody who is contemplating mortality of somebody else, and also having the burden of a child, which is how to both recognize that is going to happen, and then what the significance of these objects are and what to do with them. They're kind of, I can only speak for myself, but they take on a kind of symbolic meaning because they're about the legacy of your parent. And I wondered, I mean, your dad is such a fantastic presence, as is your mum in this, and your brother and your sister. Anyway, they're all fantastic. He's a fantastic presence, and I wonder if you can say anything more about what this film has done for your relationship to him and his things, and his eventual, hopefully far off, mortality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question that my siblings and I were always asking in the barn, in some level, was you know, is this insane? And that's sort of a kindred question to the question of is this unnatural? And in some ways, this film was a response to that question, in the sense that, like, you know, we're always trying to figure out, I don't know if humans are trying to figure out, but something I think about a lot is to what extent are humans, you know, sort of part of the natural world, and to what extent are we separate from it? I think that's part of how we traditionally, at least in Western societies, have sort of navigated our philosophical relationship to everything. It's like, are we above this universe, sort of peering down at it, or are we in fact, you know, subject to its whims and very much animals and a part of it? And somehow this journey through this film became a way of saying to my dad, this barn is a natural thing.
That's very beautiful. What's your house like? Is it full of stuff?
What makes you think I have a house? I'm a documentary filmmaker.
Yeah, that's right. What's your debt mountain like that you live on?
I live under a bridge. No, I do have a sort of a house. If you go far enough north as a documentary filmmaker, you can buy a house. It's awesome.
Is it denuded of objects? Because you're so traumatized by dealing with your father's.
No, it's not denuded, and I don't, I didn't really come out of this film with any interesting, like sort of Marie Kondo-esque, like, oh, here's what you do with your hard drive full of photo. It's still a shit show in my head of a tangle of questions of what we should save and why we try to save it. But I sort of love that shit show, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so I think our house is kind of an ongoing churning reflection of that. The kids bring home their terrible art, and then we and build those ridiculous Legos, and then and then we throw them out, and then they appear again, and this is my life.
Kirsten, so you talked about the future coming into the present. The film that you made with your dad was about the fact that it wasn't about the fact, it was how you and he were dealing with the fact that he has dementia. And so I just wonder, when you see the film in its entirety, what thoughts do you have around memory and loss, and what a camera does?
Yeah, I mean, today, what I love about movies in general is that every time you see them, they're a different experience and they take you back to a different place. And so today I was taken back to the first conversation we had about this film, which was such a good conversation. I remember, and I was trying, to our neuroscientist in Orange, I was thinking about basically we got each other like hopped up, right? Like sort of about the possibilities of what could be made. That's what I remember about the conversation. It was like by the end we were just like we were both throwing out ideas, and I often think that sort of what we do with cinema, we're surviving on vapors, as we all know. I mean, it's so moving. Thank you all for coming out and being here physically in person and feeling this theater. It's really moving, I think, and I think this is we're all re-entering something that maybe is lost forever, or maybe it's still here, which is cinema together in theaters. But that it's sort of a thing we do together, both the making of films and the watching of films. And it's kind of, speaking of insane, it's all of it's insane. Why did you all come out tonight to be here when you could have stayed home and been comfortable in your homes, right? But there's something that happens here, and there's something that happens when you put a process like this in motion. So I was just thinking tonight of how we catalyze these things by fabulation, which is a different kind of, it's memory. I mean, think a lot about memory. It's you're going back and trying to make sense of things and grab onto things. But I really love this sort of, and I'd be curious to talk to you again, neuroscientists, evolutionary wise, what's it doing for us to fabulate and imagine pleasure or possibility or a finished film, or, so I think that's probably what I was thinking about most tonight, of how these sort of things that we build that will never exist, but then we have this sort of half disheveled thing that is what's the evidence of trying to make this fabulation. So yeah, I was like, oh, he made this out of many conversations and doing and building. You made this. It just makes me happy.
It's the